The biggest challenge that most cabin crew face is this. Eventually there comes a time that you decide that you want to resign. You want to start your new life and your new career. However, the challenge is that you've been in a highly specialized industry. So much so that the only industry that appreciates your skill set is the same industry. So aviation goes to aviation. And this topic is not just confined to people in aviation. This is applicable to anyone who's had a career path where your skill set is highly valued when you're in that career path and you want to go higher in that career path. But then once you leave, you're like crickets. No one cares. I know that sounds really harsh, but this goes for professions including, but not limited to, sports people, so like athletes, DJs, artists, celebrities. Are we in the world of celebrity or what? But true, right? Acting is highly specialized, and if you're a very successful actor, you could do really well. But then if all of a sudden you decide that I want to be a lawyer or an accountant, or I want to go into real estate, or I want to go into aviation, it doesn't always translate because your skill set is highly specialized. Who else does this apply to? This also applies to people who experience redundancy. And why do I know this? Because I've been out of it for about 5 years and I've met so many people in this span of time, and the only people who could ever really relate to this feeling were people who have ever been redundant or are in those highly specialized industries. So the biggest pro when you're in a highly specialized industry is that you can go far in that industry if you want to stay. But should you want to leave, it's quite a challenge. And I'm not saying that it's a con. A con would say that it's almost like a sacrifice. It's the opposite of a benefit. But it's not a con. What I discovered is that it's actually a benefit which comes with challenges. Not all people in the world get the opportunity to reassess who they are and where they're going in life. But because you've left that path which you were previously in, you're forced to face who you are and where you want to go and what you care about. Why? Why are you faced with that? Because you're actually starting from the beginning all over again. Every single person is actually given this opportunity because we all have choice every day. We can choose to keep going or to stop, but not everybody chooses to face it because they don't have to. And in honesty, it's a tough one to face because when you realize that your identity is so heavily connected to what you've been doing in your career, it's kind of hard to be like, well, who am I and what do I do when you're not attached to that identity anymore? So a lot of people choose not to face it. Also, if you're already in a successful career, like I've spoken to a few people who are already successful in their industry and they have momentum of progress and success, it becomes a scary thing to want to pause that momentum, like put on the brakes. Like if you're making good money and you are in a secure income and you're well respected and people look up to you and they have expectations of you, it's like, how do you stop that? And how do you tell people? Like, what are you doing? In short, not everybody chooses to face this question. Not everybody chooses to reflect, who am I? Where am I going? What am I doing? Because number one, they feel like they don't have to, and number two, it's scary as shit. And then there's this group of people who have been in industries which have a time frame. You know, if you're a model and you go, oh, this is the time frame of my career, or you're a sports person, this is the time frame of my career, or you're a cabin crew member and you know that flying and, you know, all of your circadian rhythm and just that kind of work environment is only for this period of time. And then to the folks who've ever experienced redundancy, who are really good at what they do, but then the job was no longer available, you get to this place where you're forced into deciding, what are you going to do next? The first thing that we have to do is find the next step. Like, what is that next step? What does that job look like? What does that routine look like? It's going to look very different. Like, if you're a DJ who's worked in the evenings, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, maybe even Wednesdays, and your weekend was like Mondays and Tuesdays, you kind of go, okay, am I gonna do 9 to 5 now? Is that what it's gonna be? What does that look like? I know how to mix music, but I don't know how to auto-populate spreadsheets. Like, these are literally the questions that happen. And it was the same with me. So when I left Emirates, I had some hobbies. Which I had turned into freelance things. Like, I had a hobby in photography, so I did that. But even though I knew how to take photographs, I didn't necessarily know how to run a photography business. Running a photography business has different, you don't just take your camera and take the pictures and that's the end. There's so much more attached to it, and we all kind of go through this. The point that I'm making is that choosing to leave that career path offered me this massive opportunity, which was disguised as this massive challenge that was disheartening. And to be honest, for a very decent period of time, I didn't want to be in that challenge. It was like, don't give me this challenge. Just give me the next part of my life. Just give me the travel. Just give me a career that I love. Just give it to me. Just give me, in fact, just give me a marketing job. But no, lucky for me, I did not get just given those things. Because if I were just given those things, then I wouldn't know how to appreciate them, number one. And number two, I wouldn't know how to operate them. So I'm glad I wasn't just given that. So I guess one of the purposes of this video is to kind of be like, hey, if you're feeling like you just want things to be smoother, don't worry, I've been there and I'm on the other end now, where to say that if you feel like you're not getting a break, it's okay. It's okay, it'll work out. Now here's some things that I think I'm going to share with you in terms of what I did learn, because you might take something from it. You might take something from it and it might make your steps a little bit easier than what mine were. So mine were extra hard because there was no one to look to. There was no kind of proof of concept. No one, there was, where? You know, like I didn't have any one of those people, so I was like constantly searching for people who could relate, and oftentimes I kind of felt like I was alone because I don't know many people who had been made redundant or come from these highly specialized jobs other than my friends, and we were all kind of going through the same thing and taking on our own journey in how to tackle it. Now, some people found that they actually love aviation more than anything because after the career, they went and tried a lot of different things, and some of them were quite exciting. Like some of the jobs that they had done were quite exciting. They involved being on site, they involved doing cool lunches with clients, they involved like modeling for great brands, and then they were like, you know what, I love aviation. So they ended up back in aviation and love it more than they ever did, because that's the only way that you have conviction in what you love, is when you've tried things that you don't love and then you go, hang on 1 second, I had it good. You know that saying, you don't know what you've got until you've lost it? It's totally applicable, and it's not even a bad thing. It's just reality. You got to taste other things to be like, this is the one. Now here's the thing. Once you've left the career, or when you're in the career and you're deciding that you want to leave, the best thing to do is to switch on your learning hat. Yes, I just went there, super nerdy, but it is, you know, when we're kids, we're expected to learn. That's the expectation of us, to learn and do nothing more. Learn, learn, learn. But then you finish school and you're like, all right, now it's time to adult, no more learning anything else except for the thing that you're good at your job. But the reality is, in this one life that we have, that's what we should be doing. We should be learning, because you get born, then you live, then you learn, then you die. And if you don't like do that learning part, then you live and you kind of just go auto mode. This is why facing the question of who are you and where do you want to go and what does this all mean to you, it's so worth it. Because then you start to go, well, if I have an idea of these 3 things, then what do I want to learn? What do I want to focus my energy on so I can get better at that and then create freedom for myself? So here's the update so far. 5 years down the track, Billy has his barbershop and it's been operating for about 2 years now, and there's 3 of them working in the shop, so he's got some team members, and this year his goal is to get to 4 or 5 team members in total. For me, I've been freelancing for about 2 to 3 years now, and I'm getting to know and love Brisbane. So again, because I'm from Adelaide, I was raised in Adelaide, but I know Brisbane so well now that a lot of locals actually ask me what to do here, and I love what I do, and I say this with a lot of gratitude and like true appreciation. This is the first year, so my 5th year is the first year that I feel as though things have come full circle. That's no lie. I do feel like things have come full circle, but it took 5 years. And I focus on the fact that it only took 5 years, because I don't know if everyone gets to experience coming full circle in what they want, where they're going and what they're doing. I'm happy to be here, and I'm not saying this to be like, oh, I'm so happy and I'm doing what I love. I'm here to say this because it's possible. I'm here to say this because at one point in my life, especially at the beginning when we first left, it didn't feel possible. If anything, it felt like I was in this crappy abyss of like no success. But if anyone told me back then that they say, hey Christine, don't worry, like 3 to 5 years, 3 years you'll start getting on your path. On the 5th year you'll be like, yep, super clear. You'll have like a lot more clarity, and you'll have a lot more knowledge, and you'll know what's going on. I might have enjoyed that phase a little bit more, you know. That reassurance that things were going to work out would have been really nice. So anyway, so this is me saying, yes, it does work out. So 2018 was a special year because I planned on working within the corporate world. So serving the corporate world, not getting a job inside of the corporate world, but being a consultant to the corporate world. And here are the 3 main reasons. You might even, I don't know, if you're going to find this crazy, but 1, I thought I wanted to serve in the corporate world because I always looked at people in the corporate world as like super powerful. Just the power suits, the meetings, and like everyone looked so filled with purpose. I wanted to feel that feeling. Number 2, I love the idea of power dressing. The people who seemed to buy corporate clothes to me were like, I looked up to them so highly. So I thought, instead of looking up to them, why don't I become one of those people and see what it feels like? I wanted to feel that. And the 3rd one, I saw a gap. I'm a content creator, which means I make photos, videos, texts that go on the internet, and it's fun. I really enjoy it, but it's also very new. And I saw that not many content creators, if any, actually served the corporate world. And so I felt like there was really a space for me to be able to do that. But I also made a goal for myself to do that for only 1 year, because I knew at the beginning of the year, I said, why aren't there many content creators serving the corporate world? There's a lot of money to be made. Why? But deep down inside, I knew that they didn't need to. They didn't need to, because when you know how to make your own content, you can just do that for yourself and flourish that way. A lot of content creators that I know have their own business. They have their own product line. They have their own thing going on. So they channel all of that effort in. But you know, I had that desire to feel that power and to wear those, you know, those blazers. So I chose to do that for a year. And as the year was winding down, I really felt a huge sense of, like, I guess anxiety. That's the truth. Because I was like, I didn't realize that building something so hard, like spending a lot of time building something and then knowing that it was going to have to come to an end, it was really difficult for me. I feared that people would think that I was a failure. I actually feared of what people would think of me. Like, what person in their right mind builds one thing for 1 year and be like, okay, I'm done. But that was my purpose. And the next thing after that was, I said, once that year is done, I'm going to channel all of my knowledge and practice into myself, into my business. At the time, I wasn't 100% sure of what that was yet. So after that 1 year, I kind of took a step back. And again, you know me, I'm into this stepping back, reflecting, I looked back at my activities for the last 4 to 5 years, and I said, oh, the one thing that I always keep going back to is blogging and photography. That had kind of been sitting in the back of my mind. And I said, well, that's it. And do you know what? Sure enough,